Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm just hoping that this will focus in a little better. Okay, so we're back. We did and as you'll notice from my other one, I actually switched my camera to this side, to my right side, because I thought, well, I'm left-handed. And the other day I kept putting my hand over here to get my paints and stuff like that. And my hand was going in front of the camera, so you weren't really able to see anything. That's probably going to be better there, because then I'm closer to this light source here. This is very bright for me right now. I actually have a light on this side and a light right here, and they're both bright LEDs, so I'm not sure why that's not translating very well. I actually have quite a bit of light even shining on me here. I have a room light on too, but for some reason this camera is really toning things down. But anyway, so we're going to do an Easter lily. I was trying to think of some paint-alongs that we could do, that we could turn into maybe some Easter cards or something like that, something that could be quick. And I didn't want to go into anything too complicated because, like you said, you can still probably get this out in the mail tomorrow, and family and friends might be able to receive it within the week's time. And if they don't, if it's after Easter, it doesn't matter. It's still a lovely card to get in the mail. So like we did with the daffodils there, if you were struggling with it, I just have to say I really don't think that daffodils are an easy flower to paint per se. There's not I don't know, I just find that myself, I didn't it was okay. It was okay. I prefer, multiple flower petals, and like peonies are lovely to do. I love lilies. Lilies are one of my favorite flowers. I do like to do the stargazer kind and that sort of thing, but we're going to do the Easter lily. And the pictures I chose online, I found a couple of really good photos. And I typed in copyright free, so they should be copyright free. And I will upload these, but this is I gotta see if this is on camera proper. Sorry about that. So that's the picture you're going to get sent. I'll upload that. And then this is the one that I cropped. It's the same one, but I cropped it. You see that there. So I will, I've already uploaded the sketch that I did, but I can most definitely upload that again. It'll be on my Scrum Sisters Studio page. And, okay, so I'm just going to get, okay, so this actual sketch will be on the Scrum Sisters Studio page. I sketched out, cropped it so that we didn't have such, so much of the background, but we'll have our main flower, and two of the buds. There'll be just a little bit of a hint of a bud here, but I kind of like working in odds, but this one here was already there. We could have taken it out, I suppose, but I felt that it was a small one. It kind of gave it a good balance. And so anyway, I think I talked to you the other day when we were doing the daffodil about how to transfer pictures over. I had one of the easiest ways to do it, because usually when I will do something, I'll put it on a tracing paper. I'll sketch onto a tracing paper, and then I'll transpose that onto, sorry about that, I got paint, it got wet, but then I'll transfer that. I'll either put a graphite sheet underneath. You can purchase them at any Michael's store or our craft store, the graphite paper. I tend to purchase the 1824. You get 2 sheets, and I think it's $5.99, and it's well worth the price. It's the best bang for your buck. You get a lot of mileage out of that. So I will typically do that, but you have to press very light with that because the graphite transfers heavy. This is light because what I did is the old-fashioned way is, actually this is a newer one from the other one. The old one I did is, you just brush over with your graphite on the back, and then you come over the front and you transfer it over. But this one was done with the graphite paper. but I did it very, very lightly because I really don't like a lot of dark graphite showing. So anyway, tracing paper is really great because then you could use it down the road. Like I'll probably do quite a few of these and send them out myself. Yeah, here's the one. There's the original one I did here, and you can see where I had the graphite on the back, and then you just transfer it over. Okay, so there, of course, was, I did this one too. I should show that, but that's the one we painted along with. Okay, so I use this is called Gator board. It's a opaque white plastic. I really like it. You get it. It's twice the size of this that you can purchase it at Michael's, and use a coupon, and then it's like really cheap, and then you just cut it in half. And this is really, really an amazing surface for watercolor. And you can even wet the back of your watercolor paper, bring it over to the front, wet the front, and then this will suction down onto this, almost like a suction cup. You don't have to use any tape. It's amazing. That's when you want to work wet on wet. And even when the paper starts to dry and gets that beautiful satiny level of wetness, then you can really do some beautiful mixing. It does stain if you're using staining colors, which I have. I've used some of the staining yellows, of course, and the blues. I didn't realize, I forgot that I was using phthalo on some, but it's a staining. However, what I do is I actually use the Mr. Clean. You know those erasers, white eraser things? It cleans it right off. Sometimes you can get on top of it really quick with soap and water, but you know, if you're sitting here doing multiple, it's not worth it. So just use the Mr. Clean eraser. I actually even use it on my watercolor papers if sometimes if I want the staining color, because most of the staining watercolors tend to be very transparent too. They're beautiful. Excuse me. I'm very sorry about if I'm burping here. I just finished eating. And now I'm talking very quickly because I want to get through this video for you. And of course that's trapped air and it makes you burp, whatever. Like you really need to know that. So where am I? And so what we're going to do is we're going to use basic colors too. So this is actually a fairly simple drawing insofar as choosing colors, because the Easter lily itself is white. It is a trumpet style, though. It's a little bit different than most Easter lilies that you see when you take a look at that picture again up there. You can see that it's got this big trumpet on it, and then these petals that curl. All lilies, what I really like about them too, they always have that curl. They're always, the petals are always curled back. Beautiful, nice and open. It's just like, here I am, you know. I just love lilies. Lily's one of my favorite. Anyway, I already said that. So moving forward, I had already painted a couple of them, right? So there's one. And what I did is I did a very dark background and used a lot of different blends of green. So it's very dark. I'm not sure how well you can see that. And so, seeing as this isn't white, white is never white. It's always either a blue white, a gray white, you know, or a pinky white. You've always got one of the other colors of the spectrum in there. I wonder why that's not. Very focused. It's fuzzy. Is it fuzzy for you guys? Anyway, I hope you get the gist of that. I will load these pictures up on my Facebook page so you can have maybe a better photo look at it. But anyway, this one was done with blues and really watered down. And then this one here, I thought I would like to maybe, because I got a lot of yellows in the background. And this one here I did with just, I made like a light purple. And then what I did is I did the background a little bit differently. I kind of cut into it like negative painting, and that gave it a little bit of a variety, a little bit of a difference. So you can decide which you want to do. And then of course it's very minimal on here. It's a very green yellow. When you take a look at the picture, you'll see that it's a very green yellow, very bright green. So once again, I don't want you to get all fussed about whether you've got all the right You can see I've got some graphite transferred onto here from when I was doing it, and so it got on here. No big deal. It's so easy to clean. It's really nice to have. So of course I taped around the edges again. You can see it's got really nice crisp edges. They make for a good card. Well, you see how it got buckly, right? So it's 140-pound paper, but it'll even get buckly if it's too wet. But what I normally will do, or what you could do, is you'll afterwards, after you're done, you spray mist the back of it, and then you put a weight on it and just let it dry overnight. And then the next day it's nice and flat. Okay, so that's an easy way out. So what we're going to do is I'm still going to use the same brushes, a number 8 and a number 4. This one is a Kolinsky Sable, the number 4. I used it actually almost extensively on the lily, just because we need very little. We're going for small areas. It actually probably, the lily itself might look very simple, but we have to be really sure that our wash is very watery. And then, of course, I just use the number 8 for the background. This is a Princeton. If this is the long round, it's got a really super nice point. You see how nice and pointy that is, that extra point on the end. And then, of course, the Kolinsky Sable is wonderful. It holds a lot of water and a lot of pigment. So I get a lot of mileage out of that. I really appreciate that. I've got so many brushes, though. It's funny that you tend to use the same ones, even though you got a gazillion of them. But I like the type of rounds, too. When I'm doing bigger pictures, I like the fat rounds, the ones that got really nice bowls on them, and then they come to a really nice, a beautiful little point on the top. I have some down at the studio that I use all the time. Okay, so I'm just using my basic travel palette. You can use whatever colors you want, okay? It's the whole idea is just to paint. Get into your creative zone, create a nice little picture, use the colors that you have. So again, I am going to be using, so what I do too is I actually always have a little spray mister, and that's how I reanimate my, because they go all hard, right, when once you squeeze them all in there. So I just go around and I give it a good squirt, get them really nice and wet and saturated, so they're just like the tubes again. So when a lot of artists will paint right straight from the tube because the pigments are really super pure, and of course that's ideal, right? But if you reanimate your paints and just let them sit for a while, you're going to get that out of the tube type consistency in the paint as well. So if you've just got a pan paints, that's fine too. What we're going to probably be using today is I've ended up using the cerulean blue. It is a cool blue because I realized on that first one I used the phthalo blue, blue green. Okay, so that's a cool blue, the blue shade or the green shade, and that is a cool blue, but it's a staining blue. So what that means is it's not as easy to lift, and I'm the type that where I like to lay it down and then lift up. If I don't get to it, I can usually reanimate it and lift, but when it's a staining color, it does not lift as well. There's a lot of pigment that stays behind. But it still looks nice. It's a little darker than I probably would have liked it, but I think the effect is still really good. One of the things that I corrected on this one was this one leaf here. So the other thing is Easter lilies are very thin. They're very, very thin petals. They're almost transparent, but I did not paint them that way. I painted them with a little bit more of an opaqueness to them, so that we didn't have to paint, the see-through, the outline, like you'll see in the photograph. Okay. So let's go. What we're going to do is we'll do the one that's got the violet, the little hint of purple in there. I think that gives it a little bit more of a pleasing look. It's bright, it's fresh, especially when it's against the yellow greens. Okay, so what I suggest doing too, because you've got the ability to stop the camera at your leisure, is we want a nice bright green. Okay, we want a bright green, and then we'll build up with the darker ones too. So the bright green, this is the cerulean, mixed with that Hansa yellow light. That's the light yellow that I've been using all throughout. This is a Hansa yellow light. You might even have a Windsor lemon or a bismuth, any, or Aurelian. I don't use Aurelian. Was a mainstay in my palette for many years until I found out that it has been classified as a fugitive, which is really sad. It is a green yellow, so it's a cool yellow Aurelian, but it was beautiful, very transparent. Windsor also has a transparent yellow. It's a little richer, I think, a little deeper than this. Um, but I like this really light yellow. Mixes beautifully to make bright greens when you mix it with the cerulean or any other cool blue. And so that's how I'm showing you here. So I've got a cool yellow with a cool blue, and it gets these really bright, crispy colors. If you mix a warm blue with a yellow, you're going to get a duller, warmer tone. The blue's going to take over that. Here, you can see the difference in the amount of pigment that I use. It's the exact same. So any warm yellow, that's going to dull that even more. It's going to be almost a very dull green. But this French ultramarine blue with the cadmium yellow deep that I was using even for my daffodils, right? So there's the cad yellow deep. It's got a really nice orangey color to it. That makes for a deep, dark green. So we're going to do that when we want to get to the dark areas of our lily. Okay, but just to let you know, this is French ultramarine with the Hansa yellow light. You can see the difference. It's a little duller. That can be used, but right now we want to choose some of the cool tones, and then we'll come over with the darker ones. We could probably even use the cerulean. I haven't mixed cerulean with the cadmium yellow deep yet, so we can do that on the as we go. Okay, so let's get going. So what we want to do is we want to get our brushes nice and wet. Have yourself a clean bucket of water and two things of water, one for clean, one for dirty. And what we want to do is we want to actually make some puddles so that we can make our little washes. So we're going to put wet on to dry, right? So we're just going to go all the way around all of this with this whole background. Everywhere where there's the green foliage in the background, that's what we're going to paint over. But what we're going to do first is we're going to take that lightest green. We always start from I do go from darks to lights in some cases. With watercolor, it's typically light to dark. Your oils and acrylics are dark to light, but sometimes when you're using opaque colors, that sort of thing, you can go from darks to lights. When I use dark to lights is when I'm doing an underpainting, but we can still do this with the lights too. So what I want to do is it's almost like an underpainting of a bright. So I'm going to come in with that Hansa yellow light, make a nice big puddle here. That I'm going to add a little bit more pigment to that. And so this is something that you can play with too. You can make so many different various shades of this just by adding a little or a lot. But I'm going to come in with that cerulean blue. I haven't got a whole lot left on my palette. It's going to have to last me because I don't have the tube here. It's down at the studio. I thought maybe I might. But you can see how nice, and it's really nice, like it's like a light green. I am going to add a little bit more yellow though, because I want more yellow. So there we go. And a lot of times too, if you have a little bit of a scrap, even though this tells me that color, I can bring it here and I can see. So that is really nice. I think that I'm going to go with that on my base, okay? So let's take that up. I'm going to use my bigger number 8 for doing that because it'll cover more ground. And the fact that I've got a nice long pointy, oops, sorry about that. Nice long pointy round. So I'm going to kind of go all the way through. I'm going to paint the entire area. You'll see why. Do with all one color, and then we'll drop our other colors in, okay? And then we can actually carve out some leaf shapes as well. I actually have penciled in some leaf shapes here, so that'll be easy for me to also know where I'm going to carve in. Oops, I almost painted over that petal there. A little rambunctious. So let's just kind of go around this. It's very thin, nice and watery. We'll build over it. So that I love doing glazing. Letting it dry and then doing it again. You could do it with the same pigment, but every time you lay down a wash, you're landing more pigment on it. So keep your picture handy, right? So you can see where you've got to. Paint, and then I pull away from the object. That way you're not gonna accidentally, I got something on there, accidentally go onto the flower petal. Because we really want to do, we do want to be careful here because the lily itself, and turn it around to make it easier for yourself. The lily is white, so we don't want any of this to run through on our white petal. I thought the lily would be a nice, especially the Easter lily, because it also signifies peace, hope, renewal. So I know that right now this is a huge time in history. Like, I've never experienced anything in my lifetime, anything like this at all. Let's check. I got to turn it around so I don't. So that's going to come down here, and then we're going to have a little bit of a gap between this bud and this petal. But yeah, that's the times we're in right now is unprecedented. We've never ever experienced anything like this in our life. So that's going to be that. And that bud up there. So you can see they're puddles, but as soon as I bring that and spread that out, it spreads that out. So this is a great little brush. Oopsie. That's my upper bud. So you can take a rag real quick, but we're going to end up painting over that anyway with some green, as you'll note in the picture. I didn't have that area dark enough for me to be able to miss. So we got a petal down here. So I made just enough wash, it appears. So, and then this part here, up here is going to be a little bit. Right to the edge. So nice compact. Center of attention is the lily. See, I'm coming in with a thirsty brush, so it's going to soak up that puddle. Thirsty brush is when you've got a brush that's considered a natural hair, and they tend to be thirstier or will hold more water than the synthetics. It's more it's absolutely lovely to paint with Kolinsky sables. They're just just a high quality and have been for many years for brushes. Okay, so we've got that, and I actually have other areas that are dry. And I mean, if that was really bother me, I could always cut it too. So I did put tape around the edges so that I'd have a nice clean white edge, but this here side hasn't wanted to keep, so it's not going to be very straight, so it doesn't matter. I don't get wigged out over them anymore. Okay, so now we're going to come in with a little bit of a darker. So let's go with that French ultramarine blue with the light yellow, the lightest yellow, okay? So we're going to make this color here. And that's going to be, that's our first, this is our second, our next darkest color. That's still quite a bit blue. It's almost a turquoisey. So there you go. You got this really nice, it's fairly vibrant, really nice yellowy. I want that to be a little darker than that because it's actually, if you look, see, it'll actually be, it is a duller green though than the one previous. Well, you know what? We could go over it. Let's just do that, and I'll show you how we're doing that. So where the pencil lines are for the leaves, you just go around them, right? Like you're coloring. And that way, and then just fill it in. And you're going to cover that whole, I don't have all of them. I'm making some too, because I don't have all of them covered up. So it's almost like negative painting in a sense, but at the same time you're actually doing a value paint. So each layer is getting a little darker and darker. So it's really nice because it'll show when you're working with greens. Greens actually are fairly hard. I prefer to make my own greens. I do. That's why I have a lot of blues in my palettes. I just find that the possibilities are endless on creating your own greens. There's cheater greens out there. I mean, that's what I call them. But I just find that you get to know more quicker. It's a quicker learning curve when you're making your own greens. When you're learning your paints and your pigments. A lot of people will use the Hooker's green. Viridian used to be one of the only greens I had on my palette because it is a transparent, beautiful green. Really, really nice green. And I'm going to create some leaves on this side. I didn't have any because when you look at the photograph, they're sort of muted out. But we can create some, see, these are kind of spiky, these leaves. It is difficult to kind of see things in a reverse light sometimes. I would love to do more reverse painting. No, well, I don't call it reverse painting. Why am I saying reverse painting? Negative painting. It, one of my favorite negative painting artists is Linda Kemp. Took a workshop of hers once, and her techniques are really cool. Not that I'd ever adopt her style. She uses paints right out of the tube. She's a successful artist, so therefore she probably gets, because she does so many workshops and she sort of promotes a certain brand of paint, it's easier for her to, regain and get her paints for free if she's doing demos for the company, the manufacturer. So to paint right out of a tube and you're doing big drawings and things like that, that could get very expensive, especially when you're working with artist grade watercolors and they're like $17.99 for a little tube. Otherwise, they do have quite a bit of mileage. So every now and again you'll see me put this down and I have to shake my hand because my hands go numb. I have carpal tunnel syndrome. So like right now I've got all in here is all numb. So I gotta shake it up. But you can see where the previous layer of color is now standing out that I go over a little bit darker. I'm going to probably just put a couple of just shoots here just so we got something to anchor it on the sides. I like that green. I like it over top of the other one too. It looks really good. So I'm just going to add just a touch more water, and then we're going to come up in here and we're going to finish this off. I don't want too much water down, because then there's not enough contrast, is there? So I hope everyone's doing well, but this is a great little exercise. It's very, very relaxing. I never get tired of watercolor. I did portraits for many years, so getting into landscapes and florals was very different for me, because I didn't do any other watercolor other than portraits. Fell in love with it 1980. That's really dating myself. And the Lethbridge of University of Lethbridge in Lethbridge, Alberta, has a beautiful arts program there, and I took a watercolor on the side as I was getting my career in order with engineering design. So okay, here we go. See, that's starting to look pretty cool, huh? So you see the difference here between the two, how they lighten up. You can go over these again just to give it a little bit more contrast, which we will. But right now we're just concerned, while this is still wet, I'm just going to actually just drop some more water on top just to keep it wet. And we can go around and do that again in a minute once, because we didn't really mix our color. But I don't know that I want to do it all the way through like I did with these, like build up that negative space. Like you go over it with one color and then carve it out with the next. I think I'd like to go along much like this, where we're just dropping the colors in. Okay? You'll see as we you'll see as we go. So I am going to use the French ultramarine blue because it's got the duller green. We don't want a very bright green, because we got a white flower, so we don't want it to be the same tonal value. So I am actually going to go in and I'm going to take up some of this medium orangey yellow, right, which is that cad yellow deep. So if you've got a yellowy orange, again, you could use that, and that'll make, see, it makes a nice dull, darker sap green. I'll bring this in closer here so you can see it. See that? Hopefully it'll, there. Okay, so we're going to go over top with that. I'm actually going to add just a touch of burnt umber, just to make that a little browner, a little darker. Because we're talking, when you take a look at the photograph, right? You see all in here. See how dark that is? That's actually a very dark green. We could go with that. Maybe we can. Okay, so let's add some more blue then. All right, see that? We'll go with a really dark. I just added more blue. All right, you're going to be dominant blue with just a touch of that medium orange. Let's do that. See, we're doing this together. So anyway, so now what I want to do first, before I do that, I'm actually going to mist this because I want it wet again. There we go. Just a little bit. I don't know if you can see the surface there. See, it's just a little wet. And then I'm going to go to my number 4. Dab off the excess water because we got quite a bit of water here. I'm going to soak that up. And then I'm just going to be random. I'm going to go in between here though. Right? And that's going to spread out. And then what we can do after, so you can kind of abstractly create shapes, and then that'll spread out. And then you over after you can go in, because it's really not about defining any particular leaf shape right now. It's about creating some contrast and a background, an unfocused background. So a lot of times when you see photography, you will note that the photographer has focused in on the flower, and therefore everything in the background becomes very muted or out of focus. So I can actually cut in, make a couple of leaves here. Right? When that dries, you'll see. So I'm going to kind of come over here. Let's drop that in. Let's drop some over here. Oh. Let me come up there. I don't particularly want to get too close to that and lose those leaf pieces, just in case they got some of that spray, that overspray. So this in here, when you look at the photo, is really dark. So we can just kind of dump all that darkness over here. Get that out of the way. And I actually hooked up a hairdryer this time. So I might just use it. You'll have to bear with me with the noise. And that's just so I've actually created another leaf there. So we'll see how that works out. Okay. So how are you doing? Yeah, everybody following along okay? Okay, so I'm going in here in between this is the background. So I'm going to make that very dark. There is no way I'm going to try to make some kind of a detail in that. That would be silly when you're trying to do a fast picture, right? Let's go up here. Well, are we going to go? Yeah, we might as well. Right, because we did this here, that sort of ties in with it. Now, we can leave that now, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the pigment. I've gone into my dirty, gone into my clean, took off a lot of water, and then I'm going to just soften the edges here. See, so we can go around and just soften the edges. So they've got more of a blended in look. See here, too. Get rid of the excess. Okay. Bring that around. I'm going to bring a little bit of dark color here, dark colors. I think maybe up at the top too would be really good. See, we got a little bit of that there, so I'm going to continue that on this side. That could be a bush that's, Okay. Oh, see, look at that. I've just got enough. I can make some more though. But remember, we just wanted to drop those in and then add some water so it smooths it out. See that? Hopefully you can see. So we got some nice contrast going in the background. Some nice greens. I've got some bleeding going in here. I'm going to clean this out just on my petal, but I will pull that away. And when I go to paint that part of it after, I'll smooth that out. So I'm just going to make a little bit, another little batch, just a tiny little batch here, because I've got that top corner. I'm going to just make that dark as well with a little leaf. As you look in the crop picture, it looks like I've got a little leaf in there. Okay. A little more blue than I wanted. Okay, so I got that back. I'm going to carve a leaf out there. Okay. All right, so let's finish this now over here. I'm going to make that darker. And then just dab around other places. So it's very wet here, so it buckled. Okay, it's not going to get in my way. Now what you could do too is just when this gets to even a satiny kind of yeah, not, otherwise that would have dried as a blob, right? So we want to spread that out. Okay, but now it's a little even. I don't know if you can see that right in here. Okay, so far so good, huh? So this here actually got a little green on it. You already saw that, but nothing is not fixable, if that makes sense. Everything is fixable. Let's just do it that way, okay? We don't have to all talk like Yoda. Fixable it was, or fixable it is. Okay, I'm going to go quickly with the hair dryer on this just to get that. Okay, that's enough for that. For me, I'm okay with that. I can play with this later. Right now, for the benefit of this paint along, I want to just kind of carve in and get the very basics down, and then afterwards you can tweak and add a little bit more. Like I'll come in and along the edges, you know, just and give it just some of that contrast, and then of course dry that, pull that off, and then come in with a clean, just clean water and soften the edges as that would be, because no leaf is that straight up color, right? But I just want to get that carved because I don't want you to have to sit through a really long video. Well, actually, it wouldn't matter, right? Because you could just fast forward or stop. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that purpley color. We will mix our own. I do have some violets that I found in my stash, and it's been years since I've used them. There's one here called Windsor Violet, or anything with a dioxazine. It will be the same pigment. This is a transparent, and it should be, see now, that's why I buy the big tubes now too, because it's easier to read. Highly light fast, so when it says high light fastness, then you're good. I'm not even going to try to look for that right now. And then I found this one. This is an old Winsor Newton. I finally got the lid off and I can't get it back on. And it's hard. It's gone hard. But this is an Ultramarine Violet. So this here would be a really nice, it will be a warm violet. And ultramarine as its base. That was $12.99 back in the day. But I don't know how long I've had it. But this is a PV 15. So pigment violet 15, but I can't get the lid back on. But you know what I'll do? What I do with when I get these hard ones, I will actually split this, take the pigment out, and put it in a pan, and then add water to it and really break that down. And sometimes I'll even add a little bit of gum arabic, just gum arabic, which is a binder, and that really brings back to life old pigments, because the pigment itself is just, it's a mineral, right? It's organic. So what the binders are that make it animated and make it spread and stick to the paper are the binders, which is gum arabic, and then of course our carrier is water, right? Okay, so what we can do though is get like we're going to use a cool red. So if you've got like a rose color or like a quin rose, permanent alizarin. Um, this one here that's in here is a quin rose. This is the one I want to use, and I'm going to actually use the. I made the mistake of using the. I'm going to use this one. I don't know the name of it, but it's a cool blue. And I'm actually wondering if this was also cerulean because it still has. Wait a minute. Oh, I put it down there. See, I was smart enough, but it's covered. Oh, silly me. I went. And then what happens? This might be cobalt. Oh, Patty. Okay, doesn't matter. I never have enough pans for blues. Like I would have a whole half a pan here just filled up with blues. 2 reds, cool and a warm. Basically, I use always the same ones. But I like to use a lot of the naturals, what they call the earth tones, which are your burnt sienna, burnt umber, raw sienna, and yellow ochre are great colors, great earth colors. It makes some fantastic warm greens too. So anyway, I am going to. So we want this to be quite thinned out though, because the colors that we're using is going to be a very, very pale purple. And that's what's going to be the shadow. So when you take a look here, see all of this here? You can. I don't know if your RGB values will show that on your screen, but we can see this. All of this here, we're going to use that purple instead of the blue. See, if you really look, you can see some lavenders on there. And I think that'll actually be more of a complement to these really nice yellowy greens, because purple is the complement color of yellow anyway. So we might as well make it look pretty. So we're going to add just a touch of red just to start. We do want it purple, like a nice vibrant purple. There we go. So right, so we want that very thin. So I am going to use my sample piece, and I'm going to go like this. See, that actually was the Ultramarine Violet, and that's the Windsor Violet. So see, you could see it's almost identical. Where I mixed the whatever that blue is, it is a cool blue though, and this one here. So using that blue, so some of the blues are granular too, so they'll tend to fall, like they'll pick apart. But I find that when you're working with natural or nature, anything in nature, the granulating colors add just an extra bonus to your work. It gives you some surface texture. Boy, I can't talk today. Sorry about that. So you see, we can draw these lines in with our brush, but it's going to be obviously darker in here and darker here and here. So on this, see where this line kind of comes over and then you've got this? This petal actually is over top. This is underneath, but because they're so fine and see-through, you see this. We're not going to paint that. We're going to come over that and just make it like it's a full opaque leaf, okay? We're not going to do this line either. We're just going to put those nice little shadows. This one here is overlapping this one, and on this side it's overlapping this one. So this is going to overlap this. This here's this beautiful little curl. This is coming right out and curling towards the back. It's underneath. Okay, I think we got it. So just use your picture as a reference. And so what I'm going to do then is I will start. Typically, for a lefty, you really should go from right to left, but it doesn't matter. When you're working small like this, you can turn it, right? You can just turn your paper around as you need to. So I'm going to start with this here. And and the thing is what happens when I do this too is there's the beauty of dropping it, and you gotta watch because this is going to be a staining color, and that's really heavy. I need to water that down even more because I would rather come in with this really super light and build the colors up. I did not want to come straight across. I wanted to keep that, put that line in there, but it's okay. I don't get upset anymore. I used to. Used to get mad at myself quite a bit because I felt that everything had to be perfect. I had to have the perfect studio. I had to have all the paints. I had to have all the right brushes before I could start. And I mean, this has been ongoing for so many years. And it's a form of self-sabotage, really. So again, watercolors will dry lighter. So this will come up a little bit lighter, and we can come in and go over top where we want a little more emphasis. Now this one here, it's going to just be riding along the outside of the leaf, or the petal, I mean. Leave a little bit of a white gap there, so then those colors, if just in case this is a little heavier, they won't bleed into each other. You can always fill that in after, but it's important, you know, for this here that we keep them separate for now. And this is going to have just a little. So now I've got that. I'm going to rinse that out, take that excess water out. I went into both, rinse it, go into the clean, and then take the excess water. And then I'm just going to take this here and soften those edges, okay? Because once it's dry, especially with a staining color, it's going to be a little bit harder. You're always going to have a little bit of a hard edge. See, I hardly even have to use any of this, so I'm going to have lots of this left over. Now this one here, this is going to be, right? So go in the flow of the petal, right? Just feel where the petal is. So the petal's blowing to the back. It's, you know, flowing to the back. I'm actually moving my body as I say this. So we'll just come in there and we'll get rid of some of that. We'll just, right? So there's a little bend in there. Take that excess, wipe it off. Wipe it off on the rag. Have you got a rag? I use these old rags. They're so fantastic. Okay, so this is actually the main piece too, right? So right in that picture, you'll see that there's like a white here. That's that petal underneath. Don't worry about it. Remember, we're going to treat each petal as though it's an opaque. Okay, so now this one here, we're going to do a little bit here. Right there, a little line there. And we'll follow along here. Get a little bit clean water now. And then just bring that, soften those edges and bring that down. So what I'm going to do though is I'm actually going to bring that down here. Take off that excess pigment. Okay, get off. There we go. Right. So if we don't like it, we can always add more later, but I think that's going to be just plenty. See how quick this is going? This is a lot quicker. So what I did here too is I made it like this one here came over top. Remember we talked about that just a few minutes ago? So I'm going to bring that down here, and I'm just going to do that. Get rid of the excess. Now come in again. Get rid of the excess. Come in with the clean water. We just want a little. And I'm going to come up here. Just soften all those edges because we don't want that to be hard. And you want to work fairly quickly on that too, because if you're using the Quin Red or Quin Rose, I think the Quin Rose might be semi-staining, but the blue is definitely a stainer. It's a stainer. Okay. And I'm actually going to just kind of come along there like that. See that? I'm going to run that along right there. The edge. Okay. And then now here, you can turn it. And this petal is kind of going this way. So I'm going to bring my brush towards the center like this. Just bring this. It's right in the center. Clean that off. Lots of excess here. Now let's just wet it out. Smooth those edges. Bring that down. See that? Spread it down. You're actually watering it out too, which is great because then it's just a hint. But where you want some of the shadow, you've got, right? You've got the harder. Okay. I'm going to run here because we have that little bit of a center line. We can add more after. It's always easier to add than it is to try and take away, especially when you're working with a staining color, right? So that almost looks like two round circles. So I'm just going to, but you see though that the stain is already taken hold. That's okay though. It's always okay. It's never bad. It's okay. The fact is that you're painting along with me. That's the best part. That we're painting. We're painting together. And we're getting through all of this. Painters get to a zone. We get to that alpha theta level with our brains, and that puts us to a very happy, good place. It's that part of us that heals and regenerates. So by getting into this, we're activating that part of ourselves. I'm finding that it's awesome that there's so many people out there that are creating. Like, it's wonderful. I was on the hamster wheel for so long, so many years of my life, for so long. Been in the work field since I was, well, I got my social insurance number, right, when the government finally owns you and starts taking all your money. I was 15, but I was actually in the workforce in a real job when I was 14, but I've been babysitting. I never had a summer off. Since I was 11, we were working. So, I've always been a part of that wheel, that big hamster wheel. And it was work, work, work. And that was the mentality that was given to us growing up too, because our parents and our parents' parents come from, a time where you had to work. You had to work for the man, or you had to work for someone else. My dad, though, so it was really good because my grandfathers, of course, my grandmothers, they were all homemakers. My mother went into the work field, which was great. Once we were old enough to take care of ourselves at home, she went in and she was a nurse, and then she went into physiotherapy right after that. Or she transferred. Oh, sorry about that. I was trying to get myself situated a little better. Sorry about that. Okay, so my dad was an entrepreneur. And I think that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit. Even though I worked in the engineering field for over 30 years, that's what I ended up doing. Painting was always something I did anyway. I was always considered the painter or the artist in the family. But in all fairness, my entire family, all my siblings and that were and are very talented. I was just the one that had more passion to do it longer. So anyway. But now, for the last 10 years since I've been out of the workforce, I was early retired. I decided that I was going to die in the arts, and so here I am. Loving it. All things art now. Okay, so we've got that part, the main part of that done. So now we want to work on this back part here. That's that tubular portion. It's very, very deep. It's like a real trumpet on these. So this part here is actually quite light. That's what's capturing the light. But under here, and that's going to be more of a shadow. I'm going to do that in a green, not a purple, because this is where the light it's reflecting off of. But this back here has not, is in shadow. So we're going to do that with one of the duller greens. And so remember when we had the greens here, we're going to go to a dull one, but let's go to a light dull one, right? Something like this here. So that would be the French ultramarine with the a medium deep or a medium yellow would be great. And then that would give us, or warm yellow, and that will give us a dull. Hence a yellow medium is a warmer yellow too. It gives pretty bright greens, but it's warmer than the cooler blues, right? Anyway, I keep just be quiet for a minute and then I can get my okay, see how dull that is? Almost a gray. You know why? Because the opposite of blue is orange. And because I used an orange yellow, this makes this look like a gray, which is perfect. Okay, so I am going to actually draw this in now. Actually, no, you know what? Let's do this. Let's paint this all down like this. Okay, just color that in. It's really essentially what you're doing, right? And then we're going to let that dry. I'm not even going to worry about the little light part because when I come over with a darker color later, it's going to look light. So I'm going to dry this off. Oh, I got a floaty on there. Great hair dryers. What a great invention. So I'm going to come in, see, I'm just going to, that's that top bud. Now I'm just going to come in and smooth that out. Lift it up, take it away. There we go. Okay. So while that's still a little bit damp, so let's go to this part. We want this to be a bright yellowy green, more yellow. And that will just take just a tad of the blue. Okay. And then we're going to just bring it through here along the edge there. Just tap it. Okay, bring it along here. And it's right around the edge of this too. I got a lot of water on this. See, this brush holds a lot of water. So I'm taking some of that off now. And now I'm just going to, see how that soaks it up and then just blends that out. I'm going to lift that up. I'm going to add a little bit of water just to smooth that out. And then when that dries, that is going to be a lighter color again. And then we can come in with a little bit darker again. Because that's going to be sharp in here, right? I'm going to show you. See in here? Right there. And that's going to be hard lines. So we got the lighter, and then we're just going to add a little bit more blue, and then that'll help us to get. So as far as the stamens go, we'll do that after. But so let's go to the buds up here and here. That's going to be that really light yellow, more yellow than green, and so we'll cover over most of that. So I'm going to come in with that light yellow again, right? We're going to make a little puddle of that because it is a yellowy green, right? The cool yellows. And then we could even just paint that on just by itself, which I'm going to do. But we only go to here, right? Because that behind there is the stem. So just bring that forward. That's really heavy. Let's add some more clean water on there. That's heavy yellow. Okay, and I'm just going to bring it that spreading out. Okay, and then I'm just going to carry that over to here. So there's going to be a little bit of white on there. Like I said, if you don't, that's okay too, because what are you going to do? You're going to hand everybody the photograph along with your card. How are they going to know? As long as you got your contrast and your highlights in there, that's what's going to make it stand out. It's artistic interpretation. Okay. I always look for, there's actually a couple of really good sites. Oh, and then we've got this one here too. And most of the color is on right in the center and just on the edge. So it's like little stripes. So let's do that too. Just go bring it right down the middle and then just that edge. Leave this edge here white. Okay. Careful, Daisy. My little poopsie, my little dog there. She sounds like she's falling down the stairs. Okay. I'm going to come in here with that really bright green. It's a little bit thick, that stalk. We can always clean that part up there, you know. Okay. Okay, while that's drying, so over here, while this is like a satiny, what we can do now is we want to just introduce very light green. Very, very light. I'm going to just take some of that green I made earlier. If you got some of that left over, if you got some of the, you know, that bright green, leafy green. See, now we've got that. I'll show you here. See that? Nice yellowy green. You know what? There's a really nice, one of my favorite paints. And it's funny because I was always a purist for so long. And make your own greens. And well, I'll tell you, Holbein has a green. It's called leaf green. It's my favorite green. I use it a lot. And that actually looks very, very close to it. Okay, so I'm just coming up here. I'm going to come over here. So we're building, right? Don't have to color the whole thing in. We're building, we're dropping just more pigment on top, right? We're gonna, these are these, this is that bud that's just ready to open up. That's a petal in here, more petals in here. There are 6 petals, right, for lilies. So we've got this one, there's 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you see how I got a hard edge there? Now come in with, take off the excess water, because especially if you're using a Kolinsky, then you can just come in and soften those edges. So it blends beautifully. Right? It almost looks like it's just a graduated color. Okay, so now you can come in with just a little bit more of a harder green, right? And just dab it on, because that's going to blend. Right? That's going to blend. See how that color's just blending in there and it's pulling along. It's pulling right along where, so the pigment will go where the water is, right? It'll flow where the water is. Okay, so now we also have just a little bit of shadow in here. Got a little bit darker than I wanted to, but what do? We lift, or we just add more water. Oh, there's a thunderstorm going on outside. April showers. So I was going to make this yesterday, but we've been undergoing a complete sewer outage. We've had to have our sewer lines redone, and the noise, because I had to do this at home as opposed to my studio, because as if you were following along in the last video, I had lots of technical difficulties. I'm not really equipped to do videos. I thought that I was going to be. I had a nice little setup down at the studio there, lots of room. And it just wasn't working out. And then I've got old, outdated software, or my computers down there, or my older computers, because I really just use them for gathering files and using them for classes, right? Anyway, you do what you got to do when you got to do it, right? Okay, so right now, basically all we're doing is we're just kind of outlining. This here is going to have like a little triangle of color, like a shadow at the top. This here is going to be a little accentuated, like make it a little bit sharper. The colors make them sharp on the edges. This one here, we're going to have a little bit of dark at the very top. Right, spread that out. Okay. Come along. There's a lot of white here, even though there is already in the original. I'm just going to add a little bit under here just to show that that's underneath that top petal. And here. This is in shadow, right? And it's underneath this outside one. Yeah. Okay, so, and then we could bring along. You don't want to overwork. That's the key, right? I mean, because the more you get into doing detail, then you get caught up in the detail, and then you find that before you know it, you're so far into it, it's over detailed, you spend so much time, and then all of a sudden it's overworked. So there's a lot of danger to getting caught up. If I could paint the way I was taught to, so you pick up, a lot of things as I progressed in my engineering career, and so this is that yellow orange again, the CAD medium deep, and I just love that color. It's perfect colors for the stamens, so I'm just doing a bunch of stamens there. It's absolute perfect color, and then I'm going to come in with my burnt umber and just put the shadow marks on it. So now that this area here is dry, I'm going to come over with my green. There's a nice, but we want to keep it the leaf green though. I don't want to get into that one, so get back out of that, Patty. Go back to your leafy green, which is right here. Okay. And so we're going to carve out, right? We're going to go in there with the shadows. So that's going to show where that goes. And then that's okay for them to be a little hard-edged because they're actual stamens. This one, though, is the shadow of this. And I'm going to come in and just dab around the edge of this just to outline it, because it's actually got a little flip up at the end of that when you take a look at it. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. Where else can we go? Oh, let's go back up here now that this is dry and draw those hard lines in. So you want to go back to the darker green. That dull. Go with a dull green. And then just draw those lines. There's two parallel ones. So my brush is fairly thick, so if you feel more comfortable going with a thinner brush, I shouldn't have done that. Wasn't paying attention. A thinner brush, by all means, do so. So I'm going to come in here now, and I'm just going to spread this out. Okay. So now this one here, I'm going to come in with that leafy green again. This one here, but more of put a little bit more green in there. You could probably use a hooker's green. I'm not a hooker green girl, but hooker's green is a favorite amongst people, but it's actually a hue because it's made of anything that's made up of more than one pigment tends to be, well, I shouldn't say that either. I don't want to give you any bad information. I tend to pick my colors by their pigment content. I have my favorite pigments. You know, like every manufacturer's got their own name for their colors. You know, Windsor yellow might be Hansa medium, right? Hansa yellow medium. In Daniel Smith, and then you know, Holbein might have something else too. Anywho, so we got some more work to do here. Let's get this all done here. These are like long lines, right? That's going to be in here. Let's just color that in. So the idea here, though, is just to make a nice, quick, beautiful little Easter lily. And then, you know, you can come in here, come in with some of these darker greens. Let's just do that on the edges below, just to give it a little bit of contrast and show that there's some shadow to it. I'm just being random. Right? Down here. This one here's already got a few that I carved out. Okay. So now let's do, I'm just going to dab off because I usually see this brush holds so much pigment and so much water. Even when I just lightly dab it into the pigment, I get a lot. So here we go. We're going to go over top of these, or below, right? So we're going to just dab that below just to give it some shadow work below those stamens, eh? Ooh, it's really raining out now. I can hear it. I got my window open. I've actually, as a matter of fact, I've had my window open more in the winter. I think I've only had my window closed a couple of times. It gets so hot in this room. This spare room is where I've got the computer. Oh, I hear Harold say, wow, so it's really coming down. And this room gets really warm. So I've actually had the window open in here.
This is crazy, honey.
What?
It's like a continuous lightning. Continuous. Doesn't stop. It just keeps going while the pouring out.
Huh.
That is not normal. Usually you have a lightning strike and then it's quiet. Lightning strike. They just constantly going.
You guys probably heard that, eh? Constant lightning strike. We're going on right now. Cool. Got to go out and see it. But that's good timing because we're right at the very end of the video here anyway. So there you go. Hope you guys had a good time. And please come back if you know, feel so inclined and you'd like to see more videos. You can maybe help me along. Like during this time, I have to come up with clever ways to make my rent on my studio so I can keep it. I'm not set up as a business. I just have a studio where I teach classes, so it's not something I claim. And that's how I pay for the studio. So if you're inclined to help me out, you can make a small donation. The link will be in the video. So don't forget to sign your name to it. It's a paint along, and it's your own design. The picture, the photo is it's a copyright free photo, so you're within your rights to be able to sign that. So if I don't talk to you sooner, happy Easter, and take good care of yourselves. I'm going to post all three of them online. Okay, ciao for now.